What's up YouTube? In today's video, I'll be going over the best characters to use in Season 1 of Marvel Rivals. I'll start with the best tank, move on to the best DPS, and then wrap it up with the best healer to use in order to make sure you and your team are getting the most wins in Marvel Rivals. The heroes I'll be going over in the video are S tier right now in competition gameplay, and if you want to rank up, you're going to want to learn how to use each and every one of these characters. We'll be going over Doctor Strange as the main Vanguard, Bucky as the main DPS, and Invisible Woman as the main healer. We also have some runner-ups that'll be later in the video. To start off, we've got Doctor Strange, who's definitely the #1 tank in the game right now. Doctor Strange is pretty versatile because not only can he eat up enemy damage, but he also deals a ton of damage himself. Doctor Strange is a pretty aggressive tank whose main purpose is to walk the payload up and push back the enemy team while doing it. Here's a list and demonstration of his abilities. He has the Daggers of Danak, the Eye of Agamotto, the Cloak of Levitation, Maelstrom of Madness, Pentagram of Farala, Shield of the Seraphim, and the Gamma Maelstrom as his team-up ability. Doctor Strange is super effective at getting in the enemy's face, especially with his wide melee attack. When using Doctor Strange, you can animation cancel your regular fire into a melee. Doing this will build up the dark magic meter to maximize damage with his Maelstrom of Madness ability. Combine his basic fire and melee with his Maelstrom of Madness, and you have a lethal combination on your hands. Doctor Strange's Maelstrom of Madness explosion damage is also amplified when teaming up with Hulk and Iron Man, so it's important to coordinate team-ups with your teammates to maximize your damage output. Another huge benefit to Doctor Strange is his Shield of Seraphim. The shield has 800 HP and a relatively quick cooldown time once burst. You can use the shield to not only block enemy projectiles, but also to block a ton of ultimate abilities like Iron Man, Hela, and a few more. Effectively using Doctor Strange's teleporters are super important when playing him. You don't use these to go to the objective right at the start of the game. That's just a waste. They're more effective when you need a final push or final defensive front on the objective. It's also important to note that the cooldown time for this ability is very long, being 180 seconds. Doctor Strange's Cloak of Levitation ability is another underutilized ability. This can help save you from taking big damage from enemy attackers and can even save you from enemy ultimates that are ground level. And to add to this, you can use his levitation ability in combination with his ultimate ability, the Eye of Agamotto. When you float in the air as Doctor Strange, people sometimes forget you're there. So this is the perfect time to pop back down and hit your enemies with Doctor Strange's ultimate ability. The Eye of Agamotto is a wide AoE attack that will stun enemies for a brief duration, allowing you to pump huge damage numbers into them without taking any incoming damage. Immediately after you pop your ult, it's important to use a combo of regular firing and melee to build up the dark magic meter as high as you can to then use the Maelstrom of Madness attack. This will usually eliminate any squishy enemies and do huge damage to enemy tanks. Another thing to note is that Doctor Strange is not a sit back and watch character. With Doctor Strange, you want to be in on the action as much as you can be. You have to trust your healers to keep your HP up, but once they do that, Doctor Strange is a really hard character to beat. It's important to note that Doctor Strange does have some weaknesses, though not many. Firstly, he's a slow character. He's a big tank who doesn't move around much, which really limits his mobility, especially if you've already used the Cloak of Levitation ability. Another weakness is if you let Doctor Strange's dark meter build up to 100, he reaches an anti-heal state. This means that the supports will not be able to heal him until his dark meter gets to 0, which leaves him open to a ton of damage. The last main weakness Strange has is his defense against melee players like Thor, Wolverine, Magic, Hulk, and other up-close heroes. Doctor Strange's shield will not protect him from melee attacks. If you're a tank player, you need to hear this. Your job is to survive. You are the ones that hold down the objective, the ones that stand on the point for as long as your healer can protect you. You have an insane amount of HP for a reason. If you're taking damage, don't be scared. That's what you're there for. So tell your healers to pump heals into you and keep you alive, because you are your team's rock. Moving on to the best overall DPS in the game, we've got the Winter Soldier, aka Bucky. Bucky is nothing but a man with a gun and a fancy arm, but boy does he put in work. If used efficiently, Bucky can single-handedly take out an enemy tank with ease. This means he can absolutely wipe the floor with almost any DPS or healer. Bucky is top tier because he can do tons of damage at range with his gun and tainted voltage attack, while also doing an insane amount of damage up close by hooking the enemy in or using the Trooper's Fist ability in combination with his gun. Bucky's also pretty mobile since he can use his dash as a way of maneuvering around the map. These are Bucky's abilities. His regular firing is with his gun, the Rotor Stern. He's got the Kraken Impact, the Trooper's Fist, the Tainted Voltage, Bionic Hook, the Ceaseless Charge, and the Infinite Grit. There's no perfect way to play as Bucky because he's so versatile. As for his positioning, he's most effective right behind the tanks on the front line to attempt to use his hook to get picks from the enemy team. The best method is to use his hook to isolate heroes, especially tanks, and then combo his gun, Trooper's Fist, and Tainted Voltage to take out enemies. Bucky's Tainted Voltage attack will knock floating enemies like Storm and Iron Man out of the air, easily putting them at a positioning disadvantage. Bucky's gun also has explosive splash damage to enemies near the main target. target. So when using Bucky, try to shoot into groups of enemies. An important thing to note with Bucky is that his weapon gets reloaded with the use of any of his abilities. To explain this, say I shoot twice. I then have 1 bullet left. If I then use the hook, the Trooper's Fist, or the Tainted Voltage attack, Bucky's gun will be fully reloaded to 3 bullets again. If used right, you can fire 12 shots without having to reload once using all of his abilities. Although Bucky's hook that isolates enemies is overpowered, his ultimate is even crazier. Bucky's ult is the Kraken Impact, which can be reused if Bucky eliminates an enemy that he attacked during his ult. This means Bucky can technically ult 6, 12, or even 20 times in a row if you've staggered the enemy team enough. Bucky's ult is insanely offensive when used correctly and is an absolute game changer. With the Kraken Impact, Bucky or his teammates only need to damage marked enemies to 30% health in order to instantly eliminate them. This means that your teammates can regenerate your ult for you if they eliminate one of the marked enemy players. Bucky also has one of the best team ups in the game. Him, the Punisher, and Rocket have a team up ability where Rocket can throw down the ammo invention ability, which will then let Bucky and Punisher shoot infinitely until the ability goes away. Another benefit of having a Bucky on the team is his ability to protect his healers from dive DPS characters like Spider-Man, Black Panther, and Magic. These characters are usually the hardest to track down, but Bucky can easily hook them and take them out on the spot. Remember kids, always protect your healers. Bucky is overpowered, but he still has some weaknesses. Outside of his dash punch and ultimate ability, he has relatively limited mobility. Bucky can also be very weak if played incorrectly. The player needs to use his bionic arm abilities in combination with his gun to get eliminations, or else his damage is wasted. Another thing to note is that Bucky and Punisher do not control the infinite ammo ability. That is up to the player using Rocket. If you're a DPS player, you gotta listen up. Damage is not important if you're not getting critical eliminations. I don't care if you have 25,000 damage but only 12 kills. What is important are the number of final KOs, especially being on the enemy healers or tanks. This is what wins games, not damage stats. Moving on to the healer. When it comes to healing, each healer has their pros and cons. Personally, I think Invisible Woman is the most impactful healer. The reason being is I think Invisible Woman is the best defensive healer in the game. Along with her regular healing and damage orb, she has these abilities. She has Invisible Boundary, the Psionic Vortex, Force Physics, Agile Strike, Veiled Step, and the Guardian Shield. Her shield keeps your teammates alive when coupled with her regular healing orbs, and her Force Physics can be really helpful for a number of reasons. She can use this to get a dive DPS or tank off of her back, use it to push enemies off the point or keep them out of position, and she can use it to either push or pull enemies off the map. On top of this, she can go invisible, hence the name Invisible Woman. This is helpful for positioning yourself throughout the match, all the while remaining unseen. Invisible Woman and most other healers are relatively simple heroes to play. Heal your tanks, heal your DPS, and keep your other healers alive. It's important to maintain proper positioning with healers though. Invisible Woman is the best when you can line your teammates up single file in front of you. Invisible Woman's orbs do pierce damage and healing, so if you line up your teammates or enemies, you'll have the most efficient healing and damage. Another thing to be conscious of is your map positioning. Invisible Woman has great counter techniques to dive enemies, one being her Veiled Step and the other being her Force Physics. Knowing where you are on the map can change whether you survive or get eliminated. It's always best to position the enemy between yourself and the edge of the map with Invisible Woman, so you can use your Force Physics to knock enemies off of the map. Another important strategy if you're facing off against an enemy team with flying characters is to use your Psionic Vortex. This will pull flying enemies to the ground, which will put them way out of their optimal positioning. This is most effective against those annoying Iron Man and Storm mains. Invisible Woman's ultimate ability is crucial to keeping the team alive. It's best to use this as a counter to enemy ultimates like Psylocke, Groot, or Storm. Invisible Woman's ultimate will keep your team healthy, render all those inside of it invisible to those to the outside, and slow enemies who attempt to enter the invisible wall. Invisible Woman's main weakness is 1v1s. If you use your Veiled Step to go invisible, but the enemy makes contact, you'll then become visible again. Now you're stuck with limited mobility and are in the enemy's sights. The last resort is to use your Force Push, but if that doesn't create enough space, then you're most likely done for. Invisible Woman's orbs do not do as much damage as an enemy's DPS attack would. Because of this, your best bet is to call out to your other healer or your team to get help. Now I know my list might not be the right one, or it might not be your favorite, or maybe you like it, but I do have some runner-ups. For tanks, we have Magneto. Like Strange, he's super effective not only in pushing the payload and holding the point, but he can protect his teammates with his bubble, which has been a great counter to Wolverine mains. Magneto's ultimate is also one of the best defensive ultimates in the game for rank play this season. When an enemy Cloak and Dagger use their ult, it's practically Magneto's job to make sure they can't get that off. When it comes to DPS, there are a ton of DPS players that are good in the game, but I have two others that I think compete with Bucky. Number one being Moon Knight. He can put out insane damage numbers with his stupid Onks, and his buffed ultimate will eliminate almost anyone in its path. Pair this with a Groot ultimate to keep enemies locked in one place, and you have an easy team wipe. And the next DPS that arguably could be number one this season is Storm. Now I know most of you may think Storm is the meta right now, and this could very well be true. He's constantly dominating the leaderboards and is the most banned character along with Wolverine in bannable matches. The only reason I don't have her as my number 1 DPS this season is because I think Bucky is the most impactful DPS player. Bucky can 1v1 literally any character in the game, all while protecting his healers and capping the point. Bucky also is more playable by the average Marvel Rivals gamer in my opinion. If you feel differently and think Storm should be at the number 1 spot, let me know down in the comments and why you think so. For healers, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. I do think Invisible Woman is the most impactful and best healer, but these are the runner-ups. Luna Snow has arguably one of the best healing ultimates in the game. It lasts 8 seconds. Cloak and Dagger's ultimate is right up there with Luna's, but she seems to be very easily countered by Magneto's ultimate. When it comes to healers, it's really up to the player. If you feel more comfortable using Rocket over Luna Snow or Mantis over Invisible Woman, that's up to you. I have the most hours on Invisible Woman, and I think her defensive abilities are the best of the healers. It's really just personal preference. If you're a support main like me, comment below who you use. Alright, so that's pretty much all I have for the top characters of Season 1. If you use these right, I think these are the best heroes you can use. A strong tank, an elimination machine, and a competent healer will make sure you get the wins you deserve this season. Now that you guys know these characters inside and out, I want you to give them a try and let me know how you do. Make sure you guys drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and be on the lookout for more Marvel Rivals content in the upcoming season.